A billionaire handed his company's master password to a poor night cleaner and told her to do whatever she wanted for 24 hours. Less than 12 hours later, suspicious activity logs started appearing on his laptop. Instantly, he knew the damage he had caused was irreversible. It wasn't theft, neither was it sabotage. He expected his empire to burn, but what had just happened was something far more dangerous. Because in those quiet hours before dawn, she discovered a secret that would force both of them to choose between loyalty and justice, between silence and truth, between protecting power and dismantling it completely. My lovely family, if stories like this move you, hit that subscribe button right now. And drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I want to know who's here with me. Now let me tell you what happened when a poor cleaner was handed the keys to a billion-dollar empire. What she did next will break your heart and restore your faith that people like her still exist in this world. 41-year-old Garrett Holloway had built his fortune on a simple principle. Information is the ultimate weapon, and those who control it control everything. As founder and CEO of Apex Analytics, a data intelligence firm worth $7.2 billion, he'd made his money selling insights to corporations, governments, and anyone willing to pay for the truth about their competitors, their markets, their enemies. His penthouse office on the 52nd floor of the Crown Building in Chicago had windows that made the city look like a circuit board of lights and money. Awards lined the walls: industry disruptor, tech visionary, the man who'd revolutionized how companies weaponize data. His espresso machine cost $8,000. His shoes were handmade in Florence. Yet every night when he left the office, he felt like a man who'd sold something he couldn't get back but couldn't remember what it was. His late wife, before the cancer took her at 34, had said something he'd never forgotten. They were lying in the hospital, 2 weeks before the end, and she'd grabbed his hand with what little strength remained. Promise me you won't become the kind of man who mistakes winning for living. Promise me, Garrett. He'd promised, then spent 7 years breaking that promise every single day. His company didn't just analyze data, it exploited vulnerabilities, exposed weaknesses, helped clients destroy competition through information warfare that was technically legal but morally bankrupt. He told himself it was just business, that someone would do it if he didn't. That sentiment was a luxury he'd surrendered when he signed his wife's hospital bills. But on this particular Wednesday night in March, something cracked in the armor he'd built around his conscience. It was 1:23 a.m. Garrett had stayed late reviewing a contract with a pharmaceutical company that wanted dirt on whistleblowers attempting to expose their drug pricing schemes. The kind of work that paid 7 figures and required him to shower twice when he got home. He was walking toward the executive elevator when he heard it. Humming. Someone was humming while cleaning, a melody he recognized from somewhere deep in childhood. His mother used to hum that same song while cooking Sunday dinners. He followed the sound to the break room on the 51st floor. A woman in her early 50s knelt beside the refrigerator, scrubbing the floor with a thoroughness that suggested she actually cared about work no one would notice. She wore a gray uniform with pristine commercial services embroidered on the pocket. Her salt and pepper hair was tied back with what looked like a repurposed rubber band. She hummed while she worked, lost in the rhythm of labor. Garrett stood in the doorway watching, not because he was interested in her work, but because he'd forgotten that people like her existed, people who found dignity in invisible labor, who hummed while scrubbing other people's messes. She must have sensed his presence because she turned, startled, nearly dropping her scrub brush. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," she said, scrambling to her feet. "I didn't know anyone was still here. I can come back." "Don't," Garrett said, his voice softer than he'd intended. "Please, I didn't mean to interrupt." The woman studied him with sharp brown eyes that had seen too much to be easily fooled. "You're Mr. Holloway. I've seen your picture in the lobby. And you are Lorraine," she said quietly, already gathering her supplies as if preparing to disappear. "Lorraine Mitchell. I work the graveyard shift. Midnight to 8 a.m. How long have you been with Pristine?" Lorraine hesitated, as if admitting longevity might invite judgment. 6 years. This building for the last 4. 6 years cleaning up after people who'd never know her name. 4 years scrubbing floors outside Garrett's office while he made deals that would pay her salary 100 times over before lunch. His wife's voice whispered in his memory. The measure of a person isn't what they do when people are watching. It's what they do in the dark when no one cares. Lorraine was doing good work in the dark. What was he doing? Do you know what this company does? Garrett asked. Lorraine's expression shifted, something guarded sliding behind her eyes. I know you work with data, information. I see the names on the conference room doors. Government agencies, Fortune 500 companies, the kind of clients that mean serious business. You pay attention, Garrett observed. I clean executive floors, Lorraine said carefully. You learn to be invisible, but that doesn't mean you're blind. Smart, observant, careful. This was someone who'd learned to survive by noticing everything while revealing nothing. Garrett's phone buzzed in his pocket, the pharmaceutical contract, waiting for his signature. $7 million to help bury people who were trying to save lives by exposing corporate greed. His wife's face flashed in his memory. The way she'd looked at him in those final weeks. Disappointed that he'd chosen this path. Ashamed of what he'd become. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the desperate need to know if he was still capable of trusting anyone, including himself. Lorraine, he said slowly. I want to show you something. He pulled out his phone and opened the company's security system. His fingers navigated to the administrative controls, the digital keys to everything. Client databases, financial records, ongoing projects. The kind of access that could destroy him if used against him. What are you doing? Lorraine asked, alarm creeping into her voice. Garrett created a temporary admin account. Full system access. 24 hours. He wrote the credentials on a piece of paper with handwriting that looked steadier than his racing pulse. This is administrator access to our entire system, Garrett said, holding out the paper. Everything we do, everyone we work with, every project we're running. For the next 24 hours, it's yours. Lorraine stared at the paper like it was radioactive. Sir, I think you might be having some kind of episode. Stress, maybe. You should probably. I'm completely serious, Garrett interrupted. I want you to look at what this company really does. I want someone who has no stake in protecting it, no reason to lie about it, to tell me the truth about what we've become. Why would you do that? Lorraine whispered. I could steal everything. Sell your client list. Expose your projects. Destroy your entire company. Yes, Garrett said simply. You could. And maybe I'd deserve it. Maybe this whole empire deserves to burn. Lorraine's eyes widened. You're not well. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in 7 years, Garrett said, pressing the paper into her hand. My wife died believing I was a good man. I want to know if she was right or if I've become something she wouldn't recognize. Look at what we do. Really look. Then tell me the truth. Because I don't trust anyone else to give it to me. What do you want me to do with this? Lorraine asked, her voice shaking. Whatever your conscience tells you to do, Garrett said. That's the test. Not for you. For me. To see if I can still face the truth when someone holds up a mirror. He walked away before she could refuse. Before he could take it back. Before the part of him that had built this empire could override the part that still remembered who he used to be. As he entered the elevator, he saw Lorraine standing alone in the break room, staring at that piece of paper like it was a grenade with the pin already pulled. Garrett went home, but he didn't sleep. He sat in his apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, laptop open, watching the administrative dashboard like a man watching his own execution. He could see every login, every file accessed, every choice she made. For 3 hours, nothing. 2 a.m. came and went. 3 a.m. Nothing. 4 a.m. Still nothing. Maybe she was afraid. Maybe she'd thrown the paper away. Maybe she was smart enough to know this was insanity. At 4:47 a.m., the system registered a login. Garrett's heart hammered. He leaned forward, watching the cursor move across his screen like a knife moving toward his throat. First access, client database. She was looking at who they worked with. Government contracts. corporate clients, the names that kept the money flowing. Then project files. Garrett's stomach dropped. She was reading actual case files, active projects, the work they were doing right now. She opened a folder labeled OpShadow_2024. No, God, no, not that one. It was the pharmaceutical contract, the one targeting whistleblowers, the one Garrett had been reviewing hours earlier, the one that paid $7 million to silence people trying to expose price gouging on cancer medications. Lorraine read every page. The targets, the methods, the surveillance protocols, the character assassination strategies, the legal intimidation tactics, every ugly, profitable detail of how Apex Analytics helped powerful companies crush people who tried to do the right thing. Garrett watched the cursor hover over the document for 11 minutes, just sitting there, reading, understanding. Then she opened another file. Project_Citadel_Union_Bust. Worse, so much worse. A manufacturing company had hired them to infiltrate a union organizing effort. Apex had planted informants, gathered blackmail material on union leaders, coordinated with management to fire organizers on fabricated charges. Legal, technically, but morally monstrous. Lorraine read that one too. Then another, and another. Oplens_journalist_track_Senate. Helping a senator's campaign identify and discredit journalists investigating corruption. Project_Veil_academic silence. Helping a chemical company destroy the career of a researcher publishing studies on environmental contamination. OpMirror_activist map. Creating surveillance profiles on climate activists for an oil company. She read them all. Every ugly project. Every compromise. Every time Garrett had chosen profit over principle. By 6:30 a.m., she'd accessed 47 active project files, seen everything they were doing, understood exactly what kind of company this was. Garrett felt sick, not because she might expose him, but because seeing it through her eyes made him see it clearly for the first time. The whistleblowers were people trying to help cancer patients afford treatment. The union organizers were workers fighting for living wages. The journalists were doing their jobs. The activists were trying to save the planet. And he'd made millions helping powerful people crush them. His wife's voice echoed, "Promise me you won't become the kind of man who mistakes winning for living." He'd become exactly that man. And now a night cleaner with a high school education and a generous heart knew it. But Lorraine wasn't done. She accessed the financial system. Garrett braced for her to transfer money, to take what she could while she had access. She didn't touch payroll, didn't touch accounts receivable. She went straight to accounts payable, specifically vendor payments. She was looking at how much Apex paid its contractors. The cleaning company, the security company, the food service company, all the invisible people who kept the building running. She pulled up Pristine Commercial Services, looked at the contract. $47,000 per month for full building cleaning services. 50 employees working graveyard shifts. Then she did the math. Garrett could see her opening a calculator program. $47,000 divided by 50 employees equals $940 per employee per month. If they worked full-time, 160 hours. That was $5.88 per hour, less than minimum wage. The cleaning company was taking the contract money and underpaying workers, pocketing the difference. Lorraine looked at her own paycheck history. $11.25 per hour. Below the contracted rate. Below what Apex was actually paying for her labor. She'd been stolen from, for 4 years. Then she did something Garrett didn't expect. She accessed the employee database. Not Apex's employees, Pristine's employees. The cleaning staff. She pulled personnel files for all 50 cleaners working this building. And she started documenting. Employee by employee, she noted the wage theft. Cross-referenced contract amounts with actual pay. Calculated how much each person had been cheated over the years. Compiled evidence. Then she accessed email. Garrett's breath caught. This was it. She was going to expose everything. Send the project files to journalists. Blow the whistle on all of it. She opened a draft email. But she didn't address it to media. She addressed it to Department of Labor, Wage and Hour Division. She attached the wage theft documentation. 50 employees, 4 years of stolen wages, detailed evidence. But she didn't send it yet. Instead, she went back to the project files. The ugly ones. The ones that proved what Apex really was. She started copying them. Not all of them, just specific ones. The pharmaceutical whistleblower contract. The union-busting file. The journalist surveillance project. Garrett's pulse hammered. She was going to leak them. She was going to destroy him. But she didn't send those either. Instead, she opened a Word document and started writing. Garrett clicked to view it, his hands trembling. The document title, What I Found. Docs. He read what she wrote. Mr. Holloway, you gave me access to your company's systems and told me to tell you the truth. Here it is. Your company destroys people for money. Good people. People trying to help others, expose corruption, organize for fair treatment, report the truth, protect the environment. You're not on the side of justice. You're the weapon injustice uses to protect itself. I found 47 active projects. I read them all. Every single one made me sick. Every single one was legal. And every single one was evil. But here's what you need to understand. I'm a cleaner. I've been invisible my entire working life. I've watched people like you walk past me like I'm furniture. I've scrubbed up after your messes, literal and metaphorical, for 4 years. And in those 4 years, I've also been stolen from. Your cleaning contractor has been underpaying every employee in this building. We're supposed to make $14.75 an hour based on your contract. I make $11.25. That's $3.50 stolen from every hour I work. Over 4 years, that's approximately $29,000 stolen from me alone. From all of us combined, it's over $1.4 million. So when you ask me what my conscience tells me to do with this access, here's my answer. I could expose your projects. I could send everything to journalists and watch your company burn. Part of me wants to. The part that's angry. The part that's watched you profit from hurting people while I can barely afford my daughter's insulin. But I won't. You want to know why? Because you gave me this access voluntarily. Because you asked for truth, not destruction. Because somewhere under all this ugliness, there's a person who knows this is wrong and wanted someone to confirm it. You don't need me to destroy you. You need me to tell you that you're destroying yourself. That the person you used to be, the one your wife loved, the one who made that promise to her, is suffocating under the weight of this empire you built. I'm not going to be your executioner, but I'm also not going to be complicit in your crimes. Here's what I'm doing. I've documented the wage theft by Pristine Commercial Services. I'm filing a complaint with the Department of Labor. That's not about you. That's about justice for 50 people who've been robbed. I've copied 7 of your most ethically corrupt project files. I'm not sending them anywhere. Yet, I'm keeping them as insurance. If you continue this work, if you take on projects like these again, I'll make sure they become public. Consider this a warning. I'm attaching a list of the people harmed by your projects. The cancer patients who can't afford medicine because your client successfully silenced whistleblowers. The factory workers who lost their organizing effort because you infiltrated their union. The journalist whose career you helped destroy. Real names. Real lives. Real consequences of your choices. You asked for truth. Here it is, you have a choice to make. You can keep building this empire on the backs of crushed people, or you can remember who you were before grief turned you into this. Your wife asked you not to mistake winning for living. You've been losing for 7 years while thinking you were winning. I can't absolve you. I can't fix you. I can only hold up the mirror you asked for. What you do next is up to you. Lorraine Mitchell, night cleaner, floor 51 to 53-inch. Garrett read it 3 times. Then he closed his laptop and cried for the first time since his wife's funeral. At 8:15 a.m., he returned to the office. Lorraine was in the break room, exactly where he'd found her, putting away her cleaning supplies. She saw him and went completely still. I read what you wrote, Garrett said, his voice hoarse. Lorraine straightened her shoulders. I meant every word. I know you did. He pulled out his phone, opened the project management system, and showed her the screen. I'm terminating these contracts. All of them. Every project you flagged. We're out. Lorraine's eyes widened. That's millions of dollars. It's blood money, Garrett said. And I'm done drinking blood. Your board will fight you. Your clients will sue. Your company. My company is built on rot. Garrett interrupted. You were right about everything. The projects. The compromise. What I've become. All of it. Lorraine studied his face, looking for deception, finding only exhaustion. What about the wage theft? Are you going to protect Pristine because they're your contractor? I already fired them, Garrett said, showing her another email. 6 a.m. this morning. Termination effective immediately. I've hired a new cleaning company, one that pays $18 per hour with benefits. And I've called the Department of Labor myself to report Pristine. I want every employee who was stolen from to get their money back, plus damages. Lorraine pressed her hand to her mouth. You're serious. I've spent 7 years being the wrong kind of serious, Garrett said. I want to try being the right kind. What about those files I copied? The insurance I kept? Garrett met her eyes. Keep them. If I slip, if I go back to being that person, you have my permission to burn it all down. Consider yourself my conscience. God knows I don't trust my own anymore. Lorraine shook her head slowly. I don't understand you. That makes two of us, Garrett admitted. But I understand something I didn't yesterday. My wife died disappointed in me. I can't fix that. But maybe I can stop being the kind of man she'd be ashamed of. They stood in the break room where this had started, surrounded by the smell of industrial cleaner and the hum of fluorescent lights. And for the first time in 7 years, Garrett felt like he could breathe. I have a question, he said. When you found the wage theft, when you realized your employer had been stealing from you for years, why didn't you use my system access to pay yourself back? You could have transferred money, fixed your account, taken what was owed to you. Lorraine's expression hardened. Because that would make me a thief. I'm not a thief. I'm someone who was stolen from. There's a difference. Even when no one would have known. Even when you'd have been justified. Especially then, Lorraine said firmly. My daughter has type 1 diabetes. Do you know how expensive insulin is? Do you know how many times I've had to choose between her medication and our rent? I could have used that money. God knows I needed it. But stealing, even from someone who stole from me, would mean becoming someone I couldn't live with. And I have to live with myself long after your test is over. Garrett felt something crack open in his chest. You're a better person than I am. No, Lorraine said. I'm just a person who remembers that poverty doesn't make you immoral. It reveals what you already are. I'm still the person I was before I had nothing. You're still the person you were before you had everything. The question is whether we like those people. 3 months later, Garrett stood in front of the Apex Analytics Board of Directors and announced the new direction. No more political hit jobs. No more union busting. No more helping powerful people crush whistleblowers. Instead, they'd pivot to helping nonprofits, journalists, and advocacy groups use data to expose corruption rather than enable it. Half the board resigned. 2 clients sued. Revenue dropped 40% in the first quarter. Garrett didn't care. He hired Lorraine as Director of Ethics and Compliance. $110,000 salary plus full benefits. Her job was to review every potential client, every project proposal, every contract, and answer one question. Would we be proud to defend this work publicly? If the answer was no, they didn't take the job. The company got smaller, leaner, less profitable by traditional measures. But Garrett started sleeping through the night for the first time in 7 years. One evening, 6 months after the password incident, Garrett found Lorraine in her new office. A real office with windows and a door and her daughter's artwork pinned to the wall, reviewing a potential contract. What's the verdict? He asked. Lorraine looked up, exhaustion and satisfaction mixing on her face. Environmental group wants us to help track corporate pollution violations. Good people doing good work. We should take it. Then we'll take it, Garrett said. Lorraine smiled. You know, when you first gave me that password, I thought you were testing me. trying to catch me being corrupt or desperate enough to abuse power. I was testing myself, Garrett admitted. I needed someone with no reason to lie to tell me what I'd become. And now I'm trying to become someone my wife would recognize, Garrett said. Someone who understands that information is only power if you use it to help people, not hurt them. Lorraine nodded slowly. She'd be proud. The person you're becoming. She'd be proud. Garrett's throat tightened. How do you know? Because you gave a stranger access to your worst secrets and trusted them to tell you the truth instead of destroy you, Lorraine said. That takes courage, and humility, and hope that goodness still exists somewhere in the world. Those are the qualities of a good person. I gave you power and you used it to show me mercy, Garrett said. You could have ruined me. You had every justification. But you chose to give me a chance to be better instead. We all need that chance, Lorraine said quietly. Lord knows I've made mistakes. Lord knows I've been desperate enough to compromise. The difference between us and the people we used to hurt? We got second chances. They deserve them too. A year later, Apex Analytics was half the size it had been but twice as proud of its work. They'd helped expose 3 major corporate fraud cases, supported 2 Pulitzer-winning investigative reports, and provided pro bono data analysis to a dozen advocacy organizations. The company would never be worth $7 billion again. Garrett would never be on Forbes lists or win industry awards. He'd never been happier. On the anniversary of the password incident, Garrett took Lorraine to lunch at a small cafe near the office. Not a power lunch at an expensive restaurant, just 2 people sharing a meal. I've been thinking about that night, Garrett said. About what you wrote in that document. About how I'd been losing while thinking I was winning. Do you still feel that way? Lorraine asked. Garrett thought about his smaller company, his smaller bank account, his smaller reputation in the industry. Then he thought about sleeping well, looking in mirrors without flinching, doing work he could defend. I feel like I'm living instead of winning, he said. Turns out there's a difference. Lorraine smiled. Your wife knew that. She tried to teach you. I had to lose everything to learn it, Garrett admitted. Or almost everything. Had to watch a night cleaner with a high school diploma show me what integrity looks like when it costs you something. It always costs something, Lorraine said. The question is whether you're willing to pay. You paid. You're still paying. That's how I know you meant it. They sat in comfortable silence. 2 people who'd tested each other and found something neither expected. That goodness could survive cynicism, that truth could survive power, that mercy could survive justice. Garrett thought about that March night when he'd handed over a password expecting to prove that trust was foolish. Instead, he'd discovered that trust was the only thing that mattered. Not blind trust, not naive trust, but the kind of trust that says, I see who you are, and I believe you can choose to be better. Lorraine had seen who he was at his worst, his most corrupt, his most compromised, and still believed he could choose better. And because she believed it, he'd found the courage to become it. The test he'd designed wasn't really a test at all. It was a confession, a cry for help, a desperate plea from a man drowning in his own empire, begging someone to throw him a lifeline disguised as truth. Lorraine had thrown him the truth, and it had saved his life. As they walked back to the office together, a CEO and his director of ethics, a billionaire and a former cleaner, 2 people who'd found redemption in the unlikeliest of places. Garrett realized his wife had been right about everything. Winning meant nothing if you lost yourself in the process. Living meant choosing who you wanted to be, even when it cost you everything you'd built. And trust, real, vulnerable, terrifying trust, was the only currency that could buy back a soul you'd sold. He'd given Lorraine a password. She'd given him back his humanity. It was the best trade he'd ever made. Thank you for watching. Take a few seconds to subscribe, like, and share this story with people you love. See you on the next one. Love you.